محمد
Let me take some.
I was going to warn you, but محمد. دكتور هتاو حمد صالح. دكتور آراس رمضان. دكتور شوان آدم. دكتور هتاو كريم. دكتور أمير عبد الله.
عامر.
دكتور هيرش عبد الله. دكتور محمد صالح. دكتور محمد going to be Dr. Safel. Mrs. Nia Hussein. Have a laptop. Mr. Yasa, Mr. Yasa, Dr. Yasa, Mr. Mahdi, Dr. Mahdi. And she's our professional photographer, so if someone thinks Mr. Alan, our worried staff who has not arrived yet. We will later on Sarah and for them. Mr. Destur Osman. Did everyone got their certificate?
No.
Mr. Mr. Mariman Jamal, now Nastania. Ms. Khazan, Faridun Salah. Ms. Kalan Salah. Mr. Pishtiwan Mansour. Ms. Lana Abdul Qadir Abu Bakr. Mr. Zania Rahim Halim. And I want you to take a photo with no one here for Alan. We will Photoshop it later. Later on we do it with him. very pity that he's not there. He has been keeping calling us to come to make sure he arrived on time and he's there. Yes. Thank you. Mr. Adil Muhammad Ahmed. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much for
systems, so I can go back home to Scotland and say I've actually done something worthwhile. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
If you do have abstracts and you want them checked, please just send me the email. Thank you. Thank you.
Nice slide back.
Have a seat here.
All right, so back to the reason why we're here. So today we're going to look at theory, very briefly, very lightly, because we could spend, I don't know, a month on theory alone. So this is going to be a very gentle touch. Then we're going to move into research methodologies, the ologies being the important part there. And then we're going to, after sort of the last session is actually going to be on grant proposals. So moving into something slightly different, but equally important. So, before I move, well, I'll move to that slide. Anyone want to tell me what theory is? You know, an easy question. Theory. You don't know. The way of that research. Okay, well, yeah, that's sort of a nice way to put it. Actually, yeah, the way of the research. Sort of the abstract way. Yeah. Yeah. It's that sort of opening space that gives meaning. Yeah.
A model which directs your research.
A model, okay, that's a good one. A model.
A scientific thought that you can prove it in our research.
Okay, so especially those coming from the more scientific fields, yeah, scientific thought that uses to prove your research.
In a metaphor way, the foundation of how
Ooh, I like that. I like analogies. So the foundation of your house with your research, yeah. In the back.
Trying to let the scientists who wrote about certain specifically.
Okay.
By having an idea through reading all the theories that they have written about.
Okay, so it's sort of like all the theories that came before. So that sort of the mountain you stand on in a way. Yeah. Yeah.
Theories which are using for analyzing or testing.
Okay, so theory used to analyze or test. Yeah, that's really good as well. Is there another?
Conceptualization as well.
Conceptualization, that's another good word. Great, well, you've hit it. A model or framework for observing or understanding, which shapes both what we see and how we see it. So that's going into the analyzing thing that we had coming out of here. So how we see the world. Theory allows the researcher to make links between the abstract, sort of, what does this mean for the world, so to speak, and the concrete, so what you see in the data, right? So it's that connection. Another one is it's a generalized statement that is the connection between two types of phenomena, so this statement that can connect things. So if we think back to critical thinking, once again, it's that connection. Or, even better, it's a system of interconnected ideas that organizes knowledge. Okay, so we know in the sciences theory is a really big thing, but for the social sciences, why does this matter? Why can't we just observe something and write down what we observed? Why do we need theory? To establish patterns, yeah. Because if all I'm doing is reporting what I'm seeing, well, how do we know what I'm seeing is based on just this place, or if it's something that we could possibly see elsewhere?
To produce a new knowledge and information.
So new knowledge and
Information.
information. Yeah, it's all, it sort of pulls it out. Yeah.
Maybe to achieve accurate results.
Achieve accurate results. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean by accurate?
Accurate,
'Cause I don't-
a very good results.
Okay.
Precise.
So something that you can sort of
Yeah,
once again weigh.
Yeah, because if you don't use theories, that means you will do objectives randomly. But when you use theories,
So it's organizing.
yeah, in order
Yes.
to achieve your objectives, then you will find your findings and to answer all the questions to achieve
Yeah.
some conclusion.
So it's an organizing thing. It's
Yeah.
something that makes your ideas
Yeah.
organized.
A plan, to an organized plan that we need to apply to the real world.
Yes. It's a plan that you then look at the real world. Yes. So all of these are the reasons why we look at it. It's incredibly important. So this is how I like to sort of, because, this is another one of what it does. So it organizes, it predicts. So a theory, if it's accurate, should predict what you will find. And if it's inaccurate, if the prediction didn't work, you need to change the theory, right? So it predicts. It provides a framework for analysis, and then it changes when the data doesn't fit. So if the data doesn't match the theory, the theory changes.
The pillar.
So it works both ways. It's not still. Theory changes over time. The more we know, the theory changes. So this is why your originality can always be in theory, because maybe you found something that forced the theory to have to change. So, not honey this time it's a sieve. So the idea is you have all this data, whether it's archival texts for our historian, whether it's literature if you're doing a literature analysis, whether it's interviews or statistics or observations, it doesn't matter what your data is. You need it to go through the sieve of theory to be usable. So you think of sieving flour, right? In order to be able to cook what you need that flour to be light and aired through. And so theory acts as your sieve. This is what's going to make your research interesting. To have something to say is that theory. So, in true me example, we're going to my research as an example, because I've been doing that, all day yesterday. So I use neoliberalism as a theory in my research a lot. I'm obsessed with neoliberalism. So this is a very general description of the theory. So this theory claims that the current global system is all about economic competition. How to be the #1 economic power, how to grow your economic, like it's all about the economics, right? And so the idea of this theory is governments are enablers to creating new markets, and it's all about having new markets to sell goods and services, new markets to make more money, right? To new markets, it's capitalism in the extreme, right? And so the word freedom becomes about freedom to make money more than about political or democratic freedom under neoliberalism. Freedom is the freedom to make money, okay? And what happens is social and economic inequalities become invisible because it's all about the country's GDP rather than the differences within the country of social inequality. As long as the country's rich, we don't care where the money is inside the country. So that's neoliberalism. So for transnational universities, remember, that's my area of research, this means that the countries or places look at inviting the best universities, because we rank universities, because it's a market, and with markets and competition, you always have rankings. And so the best universities in the world are invited into countries to help create human capital so the country will be more competitive. So this is why American and British universities go overseas. And it creates, and I put a question mark here, does it? I think it does, but it's an argument. It creates a global or Western template for what a university is. So suddenly every university wants to be like the European or American, British universities. And my question is this at the cost of erasing local knowledge? So this is the theory. So now what I'm going to show you are 4 different quotes from students I interviewed, short quotes. And what I want you to do at your tables is look at those quotes and tell me if, and if so, how, does this theory make meaning of those quotes, help you analyze those quotes. So, in your groups, look at these quotes and talk about how does that theory help you understand these quotes. Talk to the people next to you and discuss it. Talk to each other. Talk to each other. So talk to each other first. To each other first. So how, either way, it's up to you. So you can decide. To the theory, yeah. So how it's related to that neoliberalism side.
If you go back to the previous slide, I mean, just
So that's the theory.
economic competition.
That's the theory.
It's really pointless. Does it make sense? You don't have freedom to make fun. If you don't have
Yeah, I'll give you one more minute.
freedom, how can you have
So one more minute.
to go? Yeah, but they are under a special position. Does it mean on an individual level or on a state? What about it?
Are we good? So, let's go back on these. So, who would like to start us off? Yeah?
The theory will talk about how to arguing and giving question about how to adapt this student for the Western University. And the second character or element in the theory, how to categorize the student from Eastern culture or from Middle Asia or whatever to the Western. So those two main elements are in the theory.
Yeah. Okay, so it links to this idea of the Western template.
Yes.
And is there an erasure? Once again, there's a question mark because we're not, I don't know if we're sure or not, but possible erasure of local knowledge. Okay. Oh, other way. Any other thoughts?
Actually,
System, culture, and perspective. How to teach the students in order to be familiar, in order to switch from one to another.
Okay, so you've got a little bit about, the switching and the difficulty of switching. Okay. All right.
Regarding the third one, yeah, it's about talking about the influence of Western or European organization on the Arab student or Arab countries. So.
Yeah, and she's pretty.
Yes.
She's pretty harsh. She calls it cultural heterogeneity.
Yes.
She doesn't mince words. Like that's what this is. So she's very direct. All right. There was another hand here.
yeah. Actually, the Kata one, if you just go back to the previous slide, please. and you are asking the question right at the end,
Yeah.
at the cost of erasing local knowledge. And if you go back to the third one, it says this is a cultural dominance. And this is, you have the same issue here now in Kurdistan, because we have a lot of foreign campuses opening, and we have a lot of English schools opening.
I'm aware.
And they say this is at the cost of local schools.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So there's definitely, and you know, so the students interviewed here, so the first two are from Kazakhstan and the second two are from Qatar. And you see similar, expressed different ways, but similar issues, right? Yeah.
So it's mixing two or more cultures by maybe increase the experience of students in order to do better education system.
So maybe, I don't know if we see it here, but maybe, but just based on these quotes, what do we have?
Mixing is very important for...
Yeah, but once again, we're just using theory to analyze this. We're not being prescriptive. We're not saying what needs to be done. We're saying what is happening. So there's a difference between recommendations, which is what you're doing, and just analysis. So we're only analyzing. We're not making recommendations. Oh, lots of hands. So we'll just there and then. Yeah.
Yes, I found there is nothing among those quotes relate to, for example, the economic competition or freedom of making money. Yeah, this was my comment.
Yep.
So in this case, I think if we say this is the whole data that they have collected, then we should revise our theory.
Yep. Yeah, so if this is the only data we have, there was much more about that. But if this is the only data, you're absolutely right. We have to then question.
Yeah, just compare those two slides anyway.
Exactly. No, and that was the point. I needed to choose. And yeah, there is something missing. We are missing the economic side, the making money side. Absolutely.
We haven't found anything related to economic activity.
So what we have here is very much about perspectives and West versus local, or versus their national context. There was here.
Last Marwa is she want to focusing on local things.
Yes.
And answering your last question.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you know she wants local knowledge. Local, I mean Arab. Arab is a whole region, right? We're not even talking about local in that sense. I mean, yeah. So it's almost a critique without being critical, like if you will, without saying it, but saying, where are the Arab references? Why are we only learning Europeans? Like that's what's sort of hidden in that statement, right?
What I see here is dominance of Western views. If you see that from Kazakhstan to Qatar to other developing countries, all have to accept Western views. For example, they say it is different and you have to adapt. And the other say it is difficult to study Western type, but you have to prepare psychologically. And this Marwa, Yara also said it is
cultural heritage.
Yeah, cultural, yes. So you have to all accept Western views, and it's no way to escape.
The no way to escape, yeah. And which goes back to this notion of the global, right? And this idea that you have to follow the best, and if the best is the West, then you do the best, right? There's something happening there. All right, anyone else? Yes.
I think by taking a look at these quotes, you understand that the dominant understanding of theory is that the theory in general comes from the Western countries. And we in the East think, or in the East, we think that we have to adapt ourselves or our knowledge with the theories that come from the West. So the problem or the main issue in this point is that we forget or just avoid our knowledge, our local capabilities of building our own theory and knowledges.
That's definitely
I
important.
understood
Yeah.
from these quotes that this is a problem, but without realizing that actually.
Yep.
Yeah, when we do a research of building our own theory, what we do, we come and bring a theory from the West, and we have to do some modification so we can apply it in our political society.
So I've implicitly given you a message. Don't just take Western theories.
In
Yeah.
general, that's why I understood from those quotes. And I have noted that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in my research, for example, I have applied a couple of theories like Hermansia and public sphere. I had to do many modification actually on that theory, so I can apply it in our society because of the cultural differences.
Yeah,
You
massive
cannot apply
differences.
the exact theory from that country, from Germany or Britain, on your society.
And this is a place where there's a lot of room for critique and growth in academic knowledge is what are the limits of these theories, and are these theories really universal, or should we be developing theories that work in different contexts? But that's my own argument.
But
we're getting to now.
on the other hand, it has some advantages as well, because it really builds new knowledge. When you come and bring a theory from that country and do some modification, and build a debate in your country and among the academics as well.
Yeah.
In your own country.
Yes. So, I'm just checking time, so we do have time for one more, if anyone. Would you like to add? Sure.
Please, I have a question about the second square point. Alia says psychologically prepared. It should be prepared. What is the meaning of psychologically? What does this term translate into what?
So these are her words, so I'm using her words, her specific words. I would never question her choice of words because that's the whole point, is to understand what she's saying. Now my guess, and I'm being very careful here, so I'm trying to respect her agency, but my guess is she's talking about the actual this sort of feeling of stress and anxiety because suddenly you don't know how the system works.
The mindset.
Yeah. So that's my guess, but that's the terms she used. And so looking at the terms she used, what might she mean?
Why you didn't choose constructivism as a theory?
So
she quoted.
With the philosophical education and how people experience and shaping their knowledge through experiencing things. I think that one needs to be fitting it more.
So constructivism, definitely, constructivism is huge. I mean, there's many schools within constructivism. And I definitely work from a postmodern view where there is this notion of how are we constructing the world. But if you work in a global system, you're most likely to construct your world based on that system. Now, the next slide, I'm about to go into my theoretical framework where I actually use a couple more theories. But you'll see what comes up. Okay, so, actually, did you want to share any of your work, or I don't know how we are on? Yeah, so we'll go on to this one. All right, so this, sort of, let's see if we can't get it exactly. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, say something.
I think cultural hegemony can be suggested as the best theoretical framework for your research because cultural hegemony covers neoliberalism, old version of imperialism, and especially for new Gramscian concepts.
So cultural hegemony, and cultural hegemony is actually part of neo-imperialist theory. So cultural hegemony comes up in neo-imperialism, which is why I bring it. So actually, what I ended up doing, upon saying what I was getting from students, was realizing neoliberalism wasn't enough. Right? Because neoliberalism, there's some implications about dominance, but as you pointed out, where's the money making, and yes, there was some of that, but there seemed to be more. And so what I did was I realized that I needed multiple theories to analyze this. And so I continued to use neoliberalism as a reason of understanding why these universities were coming in, in terms of why countries wanted to adopt Western education. They wanted to be more competitive in the global market, they wanted to boost their economy, they wanted to. So that still works in terms of the motivations of states, but it doesn't work for the motivations of students. So then what I brought in was neo-imperialism. Neo-imperialism is this idea of a new form of imperialism, using, oh, where is Lloyd to say soft power for me, right? So using soft power, this comes into cultural hegemony, so the idea is people use cultural hegemony as a way of having power. So that's why it's neo-imperialism. It's a new form of imperialism. So no longer colonial, but just using culture to gain dominance.
Especially between dominant culture and subordinate culture.
Exactly. So that's why I brought that in. And then I brought in the question of, does nationalism matter here? Because in some of the things that the students were saying, it wasn't just there's an issue with neo-imperialism, but there might be an issue of I feel national pride, and that conflicts with this education. So maybe there's a little bit of this.
Language.
Exactly. Exactly. So maybe that's in there. So you begin to see how one theory to begin, but as you start to look at the data, you might need more than one theory to come together to make meaning of the data, which is what you were saying. Yes?
Questions are, in the case of interdisciplinary research, you put them outside the boundary of your discipline. So for example, in a case like this, you also look in sociology or psychology, like, theories, and
yes, definitely.
That in terms of individuality versus the perception of education.
Absolutely. So theories of nationalism have an origin in political theory and international relations theory, which I'm a sociologist. But to understand what was happening, I felt like I needed theories of nationalism to make meaning. So it is interdisciplinary. It still sits predominantly in sociology, but it's recognizing there's not enough, and so I need to pull something. But that's the beauty of the social sciences and humanities. You can pull from other fields to make more meaning. So suddenly when you look at this makes much more sense, right? Because it's all three of them coming together. So what I'm going to have you do, we have time, good, is go back to this. What are the theories for your research that make meaning of your data? So just on a piece of paper and then talking to each other, what are the theories that you need, possibly more than one, that make meaning of your data? So we saw how this theory helps my data. What do you think are the theories that help yours? Take it away. You need a theory that you are using because that theory is going to create meaning of your data. You're going to use that theory to create meaning. As you saw, branch campuses globally suddenly lets me understand a phenomenon that moves beyond just the people I interviewed. So theory is really important for that. So that's what we did. I'll just move it up. So, remember this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is our plan. This is the structure of a journal article. Where do we talk about theory? Literature. Yeah, okay, literature review. Great. Where else?
Finding and discussion.
Findings and discussions. Maybe a little bit of methodology. And then and the conclusion as well. So. Now, it does come up in the methodology as well, but after lunch I talk about methodology, so we'll talk about specifically why it comes up in methodology. So right now we're talking about here. So in the introduction, you need to introduce the theory, even if it's just one sentence. You need to let your reader know what theory you're using. So you should mention it there. Then in the literature review, yes, yes. So you introduce the theory, and please note in parentheses "is," because chances are you're using multiple. But you may be using just one. Maybe you're just testing a theory in this context. But normally you would have more than one. What are the key tenets or the key points of this theory? What are the key points of the theory? Why does this theory apply to your research question? Why are these theories useful in helping you understand the research question? So relate it always back to your question. And then, why this theory or these theories over others? So we had someone questioning me about social constructivism over there, right? A very good point, but I don't use it. I use neoliberalism, neo-imperialism, and nationalism, right? So why do I use that over others? So you have to answer that question. So that's your literature review, right? I mean, you're bringing in all this literature and the key tenets. You're bringing in all the people who've written about this theory and how they've built the theory. Then you're applying what they're saying to your research question and how it helps you understand that question. And then why other theories, so you're going to have to talk about other theories, and who wrote about those and why that doesn't work. What's missing in those theories? Why those theories are just, they're great, but they don't give you what you need. And then in your findings and discussions, you use the theories to analyze your data. So you should be referring back to those key ideas from the theory, should be coming back when you talk about the data, right? So how does the theory move through the data? So how do we see these different points in the theory come up in your data? Or possibly, are there limits to the theory in light of the data? Do we need to change the theory? How does the data show that the theory needs changing? And then obviously in your conclusions, because how does this research contribute or change to our understanding of this theory?
Sorry.
Yes.
The literature review, you need to mention all the related theories.
Not all of them,
No,
but
that's literature review, I mean maybe chapter 2.
yeah.
Then you must show why you have chosen one theory or adapting one theory for your work or your research.
Yeah.
And then use theory in methodology, how to collect
We will
your
talk about
data
that methodology,
and
yes.
how to analyze your data, and then use an analytical framework in order to connect between research questions as well as findings. Then you need theories and findings in order to analyze your data according to theory to answer the questions as well as to find findings. Yes. You need, in conclusion, to mention about theory, to find your implications, and also you focus here the limited of the study via this theory, and what's your recommendation for the future studies according other theories?
So theory has to run through it. And once again, the methodology, we're going to talk about how theory leads to methodology after lunch, because methodology is a beast of its own. But yeah, theory runs through your research. So it's not just something you introduce in the literature review and then never touch again. It runs through. Yes?
This morning we had a discussion with Mr. Shiwan about theories. So the theories is there on the top, it's fixed, right? So when you have a data, are you adapting data to the theory, or you pick one of the theory to adapt your data?
So you don't want to adapt your data because you don't want to be accused of changing data, right? Your data should be what you collected, right? So don't change it. Like if that's what you collected, that's what you have. Now, if the theory you thought you were going to use doesn't match it, it's time to go back to your, research, your library research, and figure out what data would work. So in my case, I started off thinking it was all about neoliberalism. And so I've done a lot of research with neoliberalism. So I went in prepared to expect like clear neoliberal underpinnings to what my students were saying to me, to the participants. And then when I started interviewing them, and I started looking at the transcripts, I went, yes, it's a little bit there, but something's missing. There's something else going on here. And then I had to go back to the theories to say, okay, is there something, other theories that can help me explain this data better? And so the data stayed the same. I needed to rethink what I was doing.
So you could have a new theory.
Yeah, so that's what I did. Neoliberalism is still there because it's still applied, but then I added neo-imperialism and nationalism.
But one thing, you have to write your question according to that theory. If you write a question according to that theory, so maybe most answers is, would be in line with the theory.
You would think that, but that's not always true. Sometimes you write a question and it is in line with the theory, but then when you get the data, you realize it's not.
Yeah, writing a question according to objectives.
Well, no, there are many ways to write questions, right? There's many ways. Sometimes it's just a curiosity on a specific thing. Maybe it's because you're familiar with the theory and you want to explore it in a certain context. There are many ways to write a question. It's not just an objective, right? It's right? But it's when you get that data that you start to really see how that works with the theory.
Why are we using the questions? In order to cover all the related matter.
Well, I would say actually, you're saying to cover all. I would say to narrow.
Yeah.
You use questions to narrow.
I need
bridge the gap.
I need to achieve our objectives.
So you're using question, it's something to explore. Your question guides your exploration. Your question guides what you're going to go find. So the question guides what theories you use. The question guides the kind of data you go for. But it's a guide, it's not a cover.
Yeah, a guide. Yeah,
it's a guide.
In fact, Sarah, this is the excellent time to add to this.
Yes, please.
One thing if I may add to this. So I think something that I noticed from research here. Believe it or not, they fix title from the very beginning of a start of a research, which is a disaster. Because that means you are now fixing everything, you cannot do anything for you. So in fact, for my students, for example, my master's students, they all have orders. When they say, this is your title, and I always say, I have written my title at the end of the thesis. And in fact, I even have been telling them to not write the literature review, to keep it at the end, because yes, they do literature review, they read, they develop their proposal and their methodology. But then the one that they include in the document might change based on like what you mentioned, the guide, because the question yes help you with exploring the methodology and everything you design everything. But halfway the data might now go back and might change slightly the focus on things, and that's why you need this, because that's a very big issue that we have actually in that sense when it comes to understanding about research and things like that. And another misconception that it's very dominant here is that literature review, and this is the exact, and I am quoting, a routine.
A routine, oh
yes.
Gosh.
And trust me, that's what I have been hearing by, and I hear over and over, that's not to say something against the people who said it, but that's to tell you about how we are not integrating theories and literature review within the thing, but it's seen as a routine that you just finish and then go to the practical part. And that's why you remember in our conversation, I mentioned that it's seen, research is seen as the data that you collect only, not nothing, a background, contextual framework, or theoretical grounding.
So once you get that data, you may end up completely changing your theory and having to rewrite your literature review. You may end up changing your question because you realize your data answers a different question. So that data, so all that work leading to getting to that data is good work. But that data can change things because you might get things that you don't expect. It's the unexpected. And you need to be open to the unexpected and being willing to change in light of the unexpected. So your question may change. Because your question changes, your theoretical framework may change. Everything may change in light of that data.
That's not your aim, actually. You do a research to answer a question, not to look for a question to fit in your data.
Yeah, But, so you start off that way. But if you're looking at your data and you suddenly realize, this isn't answering my question, you don't throw it away. You go, okay, what answer is it giving me? Yeah, what is the question this does answer? And you rethink about it in that new way.
And actually, but if you know, mainly in the Middle East, most people when they do literature review, they always see gaps. We need to find gaps in the literature in which your research will fill the gap. Otherwise, there's no need to do the literature review. But most people, they do a lot of literature review and they don't find anything in it. Unless you find a gap, then you are able to fill it.
Well, there's actually multiple ways to do original research. So one way to find original research is to find a gap.
Here,
right.
About mention the related study, about previous study. When I say literature review in this situation, we need previous study, how to find the gap and how to use theory to bridge the gap. Maybe also to contribute to the field of study by using new model, combining from many theories that will contribute to the field.
And so this is where your multiple theories coming together are so important, because it's that blend, right? So in order to understand a particular context, to understand the data you're getting in a particular place, you may realize you need more than one theory because the current dominant theory is lacking. And so it's not necessarily a gap, but what you're doing is you're creating a new intersection of theories. So it's not a gap in terms of people have researched this, but in this context, we need a new theoretical lens, a new, so to go back. So if we go back up to this, right? We may need to, it's a new connection. So it's about the connections of theory. So sometimes it's a gap, no one's done research in this area. You don't need, you can use existing theory to analyze, but it's a gap because no one's researched it. And sometimes it's an issue of using new theories together in a new way to understand the same thing. So there are multiple ways of finding original research.
About the chapter 1 introduction, how to capture your gap, or how to find a problem in chapter 1, via discussing the related study to find the gap or just
Yeah, but there's just multiple ways of doing it, is what I'm saying.
This is for chapter 1 introduction. But also it is needed to discuss the situation in chapter 2, because literature review here means the related study, the previous study.
Hold on, let her ask a question. Hold on.
You know, I think, for instance, when we discuss state failure, state failure is addressed by the Western scholars,
yes,
not the Middle Eastern scholars. Now we have a scholar from Nigeria. He has written one book, which is Beauty Machine, and it was the best-selling book in 2018. And he addresses how Africa failed to real states. And he knows how it's been, not as if it is from the Western scholars. When we say gaps, it doesn't mean we say that what this scholar has covered from our region.
Exactly.
It might be we know something, but we cannot cover it. And that's due to a lot of issues that we have covered in the research.
Exactly, and that's perfect. That's exactly how you should look at this. So especially if new scholars are coming up with new theories, and it's never been applied in a field, in a region, in a context, use it, play with it. Like so research doesn't have to be, completely new. It can be just about a new idea to understand what already exists. And this is the power of theory. It really lets you play and reinterpret things in new ways.
Yesterday we talked about critical thinking.
Yes.
So as academics, if you fix from beginning with one way or one title, one question research, so we stick with that and we don't give the opportunity for novelty. So we always, from literature review, you could get, as you said, from your student, yourself, so you could have a way that will be opportunity to do something new for the society.
Yeah, and so it's being open. It's being open.
Yes, and just to add to Dr. Kozak and Dr. Sahel's point, that's called even prejudice, because you make in your mind that this is like you are looking for this kind of answer, and that's kind of bias in your research, the way you are collecting data, because now you are looking for things, and that's another phenomenon that we have actually. So I have here cases where they say, fortunately, my hypothesis worked. So, yes. So I mean.
So let me tell you.
Let's do a party.
Every bit of research I have done, I have been wrong.
Yes, you see that's one.
I have been wrong. So I had a question, I had a hunch, I had a hypothesis in my head, I had what I thought the answer was, and then I got the data. And every single time, on some level, not 100% wrong, but every single time, I've been somewhat wrong. But that's okay.
That's normal.
Yeah, we can't be right all the time.
But that's just something, because I think it's really important to touch on. I guess if we do a survey, I wouldn't be exaggerating when I say 90% of the local research, the hypothesis fortunately works.
Fortunately works.
Yes, so I mean, the reason I say this is because this is some awarding that I have been doing content analysis for answers, but because these are the key issues, misconception about what a research might be. It's not about proving I am the right person, it's just that let me explore this, I have an initial idea, let me see what the data tell me, because that also goes hand in hand with ethics in terms of dealing with data, and also with bias, like research has to be looking at critical thinking based on facts and, trying to distinguish between opinion versus fact and kind of thing.
So, and the thing is, the magic of research is, when you do the research, it's messy like that. You may get your data and realize the theory doesn't work, and you have to go back to the literature review and write it. But when we actually write our research, we make it seem pretty. We write it as if we always had the same question. So we write it as if that question that we now have was the question we had originally. That's a lie. But it's a lie we put in the writing. It's not about the process. So in the writing we say, this is my research question, here's my argument. But that's because we've already done the research and we now know the question it answers. And then the literature review is the second literature review. It's the literature review we did when we realized the data didn't work. So we write it as if it was easy and smooth. But the actual process requires, do we need different data? Do we need different theory? Do we need to change our question? And then when you figure out, okay, here's the question it answers, here's the theory I need, then you write it as if that's all you ever did. You don't talk about all the different changes you made.
So one thing I use an analogy, I see you write linearly, but that's not how you did the research.
Yes.
So you might do this like a cycle, like you go back and forth to your research, but then when you write it, it's linearly.
Yes.
But normally when people see, they think that the researcher has had all this in his or her mind and then wrote in that logical order. But like Sarah mentioned, it's a very messy process. You go back and forth, you might change question, you might change theory, and then you go back and then, but then you write linearly.
So the writing is straight, but the process is not. So don't let the way people write make you assume that's the process. That's not. So don't feel like you have your title, you have your question, and you can't move because that's what it looks like. Do all the messiness behind it, and then when you write it as if your final thing was linear. Yes.
It took, taking those templates as a cliche that should be followed. It took me 2 weeks to convince my postgraduate researchers to say, okay, you should not write introduction at the beginning.
Oh, write it last. Yes. Because it mirrors your conclusion.
It's the same as what you said about the topic. You cannot, if you change an in or on in a topic that you have submitted to your university, you need an approval from Prime Minister to stop it, to say, okay, change that off with M.
I tell you an extreme example.
This should be changed.
Yes. An extreme example, someone told me they had a title, it was like written 9/11 something, they wrote it as 9/11 in numbers. So this person wanted to change it to writing, it says 9/11.
In Word.
He had to go through approval from ministry to change that just wording.
Wow.
To say 9/11 crisis in translate way and just,
That's right. That's right. The challenge.
Yes. So, as much as you can, maybe have as vague titles as you can get, so you give yourself space to play. Because, I mean, it's just the nature of research, that it's the unknown. So how can you have the perfect question or know the theory you need if the data is unknown? If we already knew the answer, we wouldn't need you to do the research.
Yeah, that's my rationale.
Yeah, it's unknown. So of course you're going to have to change things, and that's okay, as long as you write it like this. I think it's 12.
Yeah.
So let's take a break, because that's quite heavy. And we're going to go into something else heavy, which is the methodology that I've conveniently skipped so far. Here we go. So as if theory wasn't enough, now we're going to do methodologies. So just a question for the room, similar to when we started with theories. But in this case, what's the difference between methods and methodology?
Methodology is a science how to study method consists maybe from 2 theories or 3 theories for collecting data, for analyzing, for also for approaches such as qualitative, quantitative, or mixing of both of them.
So we're getting into the connection between, and yeah, the study of methods. I think we get, because that's the edit. You know, if we look at the word structure, ology always means the study of. So it's the study of methods. Sure.
I think methodology is all techniques from beginning the research to the end.
So all of the techniques.
All of the techniques. But method, just what methods you make in the research.
So it's the what of that specific. Okay.
Logy, I think so, is Greek intense same science.
Yeah. It's the study of, the science of, yeah.
Methodology is the whole process of the steps of researching, and method, the tool.
So the methods are the tools. I like that. So it's the tools rather than the overall. All right. Is there a hand over here as well? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Sam, method is a tool to analyze some data, but methodology is adaptive, including process and including some analysis. So it's adaptive, how to make your tactic involving argument.
Mm-hmm. Oh, involving the argument. Okay, we're now linking into the argument. Okay, great.
It's like a method that might be mathematical model, for example, mathematical tool.
Yeah.
So yes,
yeah.
Methodology is the whole picture.
Whole picture. Okay.
Also, there are differences between method and theory and the model.
Yeah. So there are differences, definitely.
Methodology in general is like a justification to choose method, qualitative or quantitative or this as well.
So it's the justification. It's the, my favorite word, it's the why.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? So methods. What and how you collect and analyze data. So it's the tool. I think tool is a great word. Hit it on the head.
Yeah.
Methodology. Why you collected and analyzed data that way. Why you think that data and collection and analysis method is superior. It's the whys. And the why is the study of. It's the science behind it, right? So you're right on. So it's that deeper thinking. Why? Now, there are a lot of things that impact your methodology. So, let's walk through this a little bit. So, the why behind your methods. And when I say methods, I'm talking about method of collecting data, but also method of analyzing data, right? So we're talking about both sides of it. There are lots of things that influence it. So the first thing that we have up there is theoretical issues. Depending on your theory that you choose, certain methods speak to that theory more. So your theory may influence the methods you use. Okay, so there's a theoretical thing. If you're using a theoretical model in, for example, economics, that will lead you to specific methods of collecting data and specific methods of analyzing, right? So there's the theoretical. From there, we've also talked about ethics. Ethical issues will influence your methodology. Is it ethical to collect this kind of data? Is it ethical to talk to people about certain things? Is it ethical, right? So that's going to influence the methods you choose. So that's going to influence the why behind your method choice. But then you also have three other things that we haven't talked about. So we'll go to the easiest one of these, the practical issues. Do you have access to certain kinds of data? If you don't have access, okay, you can't do it that way. You need to find a different way. So that's the practical.
Practical, how the academic studies to help society. That means the connection between academic institutions and society.
Okay, but it's really about, can you do it? Like, do you have the things to do it? If you don't have it, it doesn't matter how good your question is, it doesn't matter how wonderful your ideas are, if you can't access the data for whatever reason, you can't do it that way, right? So that will always shape it. And I think this is the easiest one for us to understand because it's our lived every day. Then you have macro-political issues and micro-political issues. So by micro-political issues, I mean institutional politics, right? You all work at institutions, at different universities, and depending on the politics of your universities, that may influence the methods you use. Also, if you're doing research, for example, on governmental institutions, who you're able to speak to and why you're allowed to speak to them may influence your methods, right? So this is what I mean by micro-political. It's institutional politics. It's the small p politics things. May influence your methods. This is reality. And especially in the social sciences and humanities, you're researching people, and if you're researching people, you're going to have politics. And then macro-political issues are actual like regional or state politics, may influence. So for example, some governments refuse to release certain kinds of data. You can't do it. Like the macro politics won't let you, right? So as you can see, methodology, the why you choose a particular method, is actually really big and complicated. It's probably the most complicated decision you have to make, is your methodological choices. Right? Yep. Yes. Yeah. So it's all of those together are your methods. And these things may conflict. So there may be one methodology you really want to do, but there are ethical issues. But if you try to do it a different way, you then have micro-political issues. So it's like a puzzle. And you have to figure out how to make the puzzle fit to be able to figure out how to handle your issues. So using my research, once again, because you guys are stuck listening to my research. So my methodological issues, well, theoretically, you know now that I was using neoliberalism, nationalism, and neo-imperialism, right? So the kind of questions that raises is for more qualitative data, right? It's very difficult to statistically analyze that, especially for my question. Okay, so we know that's already pushing me towards a certain kind of data. Ethical issues, oh, massive ethical issues. Because I was going into countries where I was asking students to potentially be critical of their own universities. And what would happen if people knew who the student was? So for example, I questioned one student who was Chechen when I was living in Kazakhstan. And in the political setting, Chechens are deeply distrusted in Kazakhstan, right? There's fear of separatism. And so if you suddenly have a Chechen student saying anything critical of the government, that could land that student in prison if they're caught. So that's a huge ethical question by asking them to talk about anything even slightly critical, right? So massive ethical issues. Doesn't mean it's going to stop me from talking to them, but it does mean how I set up my ethics, how I set up the way I anonymize the students. I need to protect his identity, and he's just one example that I need to protect above all else. So ethical issues there. Okay. Practical issues, well, I'm studying transnational higher education. Who do I know at what universities that will give me access to students? I used to work in Kazakhstan, I used to work in Qatar, so I know people at universities there. I know they will forward my email on and they will help me recruit participants. So this is why I focused on Qatar and Kazakhstan, and why I didn't look at Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Kuala Lumpur, Ghana also has a lot of branch campuses. I mean, I could sit here naming country after country. So the practical issues, I choose those two countries, not because I have a preference, but because I know people. Very simple. So macro political links to the ethical. So what are the politics of those countries? Both of them are authoritarian regimes. Both of them aren't very democratic. Both of them have laws saying that you're not allowed to critique the government. Okay, so I need to that's a political issue that hits the ethical. And then micro is, of course, the politics of the institutions themselves. Right? So that gives you a sense of how all my decisions in terms of how I did my research were shaped by those. So what I'm going to have you do is... Yes?
Before we go to the practical side,
yeah.
I wanted to know the difference between micro-political issues and macro-political issues.
Mm-hmm.
So that one is more, if I understand it correctly, that's more... narrower.
Yeah, narrow. Yeah, so it's so for example, if I worked here at the Polytechnic University, it would be the politics of this university. So who has the power and who do I have to talk to be able to, and if somebody doesn't like a particular type of research and they have power over me in this institution, then I can't do it. So it's the micro, it's the small institution, not the government, not the state. So normally when we say politics, we mean macro, but that's, the state, the wider. Okay. But anywhere where you have people, you have some form of politics. Right?
When it has one person, it becomes politics.
Exactly. So it's just a way of differentiating the different types of politics. Yeah. Yeah. And once again, because we're social sciences and humanities, inevitably what we're researching has political implications. Even if it's history, history has huge political implications. It's very difficult to research it and not have that. So anything you're researching that's based on people will have micro and macro political issues. And it's recognizing that and choosing your methods, recognizing that. So what I was going to have you do was thinking about your research. What are the theoretical issues, ethical, macro, micro, and practical issues that influence your methods, your methodology? Is that a question, or is that just scratching your head? It's okay, I mean.
Actually, because methodology is like the general strategy for the research. So before you start in your research, you have to make your strategy according to the methodology.
Exactly. But then you also have to, in your methodology section, write about it. Right? So you have to be aware of how these things influenced you to be able to write about it.
No, how, because there's always a confusion between method and methodology.
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm just asking from your point of view. So what would be like when you say my methodology is this, but then my methods are, you say, survey, questionnaire, and focus group, this would be considered a method.
So your methods are just what you did and how you did them. So I did interviews, and then I used thematic analysis to analyze my interviews. That's my methods.
There are tools.
Right.
Collecting.
Yeah, it's the tools. Whereas the methodology is all of the thinking around it. It's all the whys. And it's that why linked to the theory. How did that theory lead you to these methods? How did those ethics lead you?
It would be something like a case study. This research relies on a case study.
No. So it would be, why do you rely on case study? So it's the why underneath it, speaking about all these things.
For example, we say chapter 3 is a methodology consists of data method,
and all of these things
That
as
means
well.
not included.
Yeah.
In fact, my supervisor used to say methodology includes the literature review as well.
Yeah.
And where you choose. So
Exactly.
even before they're going to the practical side, which is the
Yeah.
evaluation.
So you always need to connect your methods to your theory. Your theory should always, so all these things connect, right? So when you talk about, the method, I use, snowball method to get my interviewees, right? That's just a method. Now, how does that link to your theory? How does this theoretical framework match with your method choices, right? So, yeah, once again, so in your groups and on your own on paper, what are the different issues that influenced your choices? So how does your theory match your methods? What are the ethical issues? What are the practical issues? What are the micro and macro political issues that shaped your decision to use these methods? Go for it. Well, I mean, you always have the link to the speaker, Okay, so who wants to share? Well, first of all, does anyone have no issues? You have no issues.
No issues at all.
No issues at all.
Never. None of them.
None of them. You're talking about in neuroscience, right? Yeah. So in the social sciences, we usually have at least, well, you always have theory, right? You're guaranteed the link between theory and methods, right? So all of you should have theory and methods linking.
For my own research, I have only practical issues.
Okay.
Because I am studying something very old, very ancient. It touches no mobility, so I have no ethical issues. And I'm not dealing with any institution or foundation like that, so I have no macro-political issues.
Okay.
I'm neither macro-political issues, but I have only practical issues because I have to reach some places which are accessible sometimes because of closed or private property where some ancient relics are situated. And so I have only practical issues.
So when you write your methodology section, it's of course linking into theory, so these methods link to my theory this way, and then talking about the decisions of what you chose to look at based on what you could access, basically, so the practical side.
Yeah, I have to adapt that.
Yeah. And that's great. So you're fortunate because you're studying something that's far enough away in the past that isn't viewed as an emblem of national identity that people might get offended if it's...
in this case, yes, but in other cases, not.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to study something which touches some minorities or some religions or some even...
But not in this case.
State politics of other countries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Excellent.
It's actually from both sides. You have talked about like e-government, like implementing e-government program in Kurdistan region. So regarding to the macro political issues, you have negotiated about some like examples. Like if I have a question related, some question with the government, my government, or like the local government might not answer or not allow us to ask like these questions.
Yes.
Yes. So regarding to the micro-political issues, for example, if we have some question, we need to ask those questions inside our university. Again, so you know that the president or the dean might not allow us that this question is against the regulation, so you can't help it. Regarding to the ethical issues, again, like if I need to, for example, I need to make an interview with Sarah, so it's not ethically, I cannot ask her like about her salary, so how many children's, so these, her age, for example, so might be like this question might be useful for my project or my work in a long period of time. But now I think this question you have to be very careful with this question.
Yes.
Yes. Regarding to the practical, I think Mr. Satel, you have some.
Practical learning, we want to do one of the paper about how to apply government. So we went to one of the departments, governmental department. Then they stopped us to get, we couldn't do the practice to get the data. So not the practice.
Oh yeah, and that's sort of where the practical touches the macro as well, right? Yeah. And this is normal. Like You know, even doing research in the UK, so I've been doing research on LSE, so I've been doing research on my institution, on inequalities based on ethnicity. So different students from different ethnicities have a different percent chance of getting a first, so a good degree, right? So if you're a white man, you have a 33% chance. If you're a black woman, you have a 13% chance, right? So there's inequalities. I'm not allowed to present at conferences or write the research on it because it's their data. And so while they let me do the analysis for them, they're not letting me publish it, right? So even in the UK, right, this is sort of a global issue, you have micro political issues as well as the macro. So in this case, I've even seen the data, I've even done the analysis, but I could only write an internal report. They're not letting me, because they don't want the world to know how unequal things are, even as I tell you. But they didn't say anything about talking. They just said no publish it.
But then why do they want to do it? What's the purpose of doing it? Do they want to improve? Or
Yeah, they want to improve. So they wanted me to do the analysis and then to write a report and talk about how they can improve it. So that's why they had me do it. But I've spent a year doing the research and I'm like, come on, let me publish this. I'll hide what institution it is. I'll do a little research at other institutions so we can put them together and blend it and make it ethically okay. But they're scared. So I can't. Okay, I can't. That's my micro issue. Right? So any other sort of examples of issues? Yeah.
I had a very big problem back in 2012 when I was writing my master's thesis back at the University of Liverpool. It was a practical issue. The simulation software that I was using needs data about the temperature inside my country.
Yes.
So I contacted different friends and colleagues. They couldn't bring me the data, or they said it's not set in a sheet or something.
Yes.
So I didn't know what to do, and the simulation program needs a specific format of file.
Yes.
So I had to work on a different country. I worked on Tehran.
Yes.
Instead of Sulaimani city. I
couldn't get the data.
Get the data, yes.
Yeah.
And until now, until this day, the department accusing me, you didn't work on Sulaimani. Why did you work on Tehran? I said I couldn't have data. They still saying you should have. I said it was only 3 months. I couldn't have that.
Masters,
huge amount of temperatures each year, each month, a daily temperature, hourly and daily.
Print this slide. I'll send it to them.
That is a great example of a practical issue. That is an excellent one where the data, if you can't get the data in the file type that you need in order to do the analysis, you have to go elsewhere. It's just, you can't magically recreate the file. Well, I mean, I don't know how much time you have.
Yeah, I know that Tehran is on the same longitude and latitude, the same climate, hot, dry climate. The professor Dr. he still said, no, you have done it with Sulaimani. And you're like, no. So he still, every time he sees me, we went on Tehran. It's not related to us. So
well, for your knowledge, you did the right thing. Like that's exactly what you have to do. So
on that same note, on that practicality issues versus the thing, one of the very common issues when it comes to generalization, because it's seen just as a case. So, for example, Sarah's case, the fact that she did it in Iran, they don't see that's a good